Welcome on into the All Aussie Rules YouTube channel. We've got another mid-season review coming up today. It's the St Kilda Saints. It's the final one. Bye weeks are over as of this weekend, and we're going to be back to all 18 teams playing every single week. We've done a mid-season review for every single team now as they got to the bye. This is the last one. So go check the rest out. Plenty of content all over this channel, specifically on these mid-season reviews. We also do 2 podcast episodes every single week, and we also have plenty of other social media stuff as well. All Aussie Rules, go check it out. Let's jump into St Kilda 2026. Can they find form in the run home? Can they make the top 10? Can they play finals? How far can they go? Let's discuss all that and more in this episode. We'll start with a look at their season so far. We'll look at their key stats for the year compared to last year. We'll take a look at all their players and how they're travelling so far this year. And we'll round out the episode with a look at the remaining games to come in the rest of this season. For the Saints and where we see them finishing up. Sorry, I had a mental blank. Let's jump into it though. St Kilda Saints 2026. This is a list of their matches so far this year. They've played 15 games, 6 wins, 9 losses, just over 100%. So that's pretty decent, seeing they've lost more games than they've won. Sitting 12th on the ladder, they've got a big run home if they want any chance on playing finals football in 2026. Look at it match by match. They started in opening round hosting Collingwood at the MCG. They went down by 12 points on that day. The next week, they played Melbourne at the MCG and went down by 13 points. Melbourne have gone on to win all 8 of their games at the MCG so far this year, so maybe that's not such a bad loss. Round 2 was the Giants at NG Stadium, and the Saints got on the board with a win, 4-point winners that day. Brisbane at Marvel Stadium, they went down by 33 points before they had their early season bye in round 4. Came out of that with Gather Round and 2 weeks in a row at Adelaide Oval. First one, they beat Port Adelaide by 14 points in what was a really important win for their season, getting them back to 2-3. They followed it up with an almost win against Adelaide at the Adelaide Oval, losing by 1 point in a game that they really played quite well. Round 7 and 8 were 2 important games for them against low-ranked teams at the time, West Coast and Carlton, both at Marvel Stadium. Beat the Eagles by 101 points, which was a huge win. Carlton, they got it by 39 points, and all of a sudden you're starting to think maybe they can compete at 4-4. Things have not gone great since then, though, let's be fair. Round 9, Gold Coast, TIO Stadium in Darwin, went down by 29 points. Did beat Richmond by 36 at Marvel Stadium before losing to Fremantle over in the West by 30 points. Completely understandable. Fremantle were top of the ladder. Hawthorn at Marvel Stadium was always going to be a tough one. Went down by 52 points after not kicking a goal in the first half. Round 13 was Sydney at the SCG, and that was maybe their best performance of the year, leading a fair chunk of that and nearly getting the win against the Swans at the SCG. And things were shocking at this point. They finally got a win against GWS at Marvel Stadium by 8 points, so they've gone 2-0 against the Giants this season. Unfortunately, against everyone else, they're 4-9. And then round 15, Western Bulldogs, Marvel Stadium on the last weekend, Sunday afternoon, went down by 22 points. So from the point where they were 4-4, and maybe things were a chance, even when they were 5-5 after 10 rounds, you're thinking if they can get something together against these top teams that they're coming up against, maybe they're a chance. But unfortunately, they just had a really tough run. Fremantle, Hawthorn, Sydney, Giants, Bulldogs is a tough 5-week period. They got 1 win out of it, but they probably needed an extra one just to get their season really going. They've lost, 5 out of their last 7 games of football, which isn't ideal heading into the bye. You're going to need to probably now win 6 out of 8 to be a realistic guaranteed chance of finishing top 10. Maybe 11 wins will get you there, so maybe 5 out of the 8 is a possibility depending on how other teams are going. The way that the season is shaping up, maybe 11 will be enough. Original days, about 4 or 5 weeks ago, it did look like 12 was going to be the minimum you needed. But it's kind of lowered a little bit with the rise of teams that had already lost a lot of games, like your Carltons. West Coast keep getting some wins under their belt. St Kilda is another team that's kind of sitting in that area. Collingwood. So maybe 5 wins in the back half will be enough. But 5 out of 8 is still a pretty tough task when you consider I don't think they've won 5 out of 8. Oh no, yes they did between rounds 2 and 10. They did actually win 5 out of 8. So they would need to replicate that form just to have a chance, really. Looking at some key team stats for the year so far, comparing 2026 to 2025, and just see what the differences are for St Kilda so far. And their points for has gone up, as has done across the league, but they've gone up by more than the league average. So they've gone from 12th best to 10th best, an extra 8 points per game for. Defensively, they've also got slightly better, 13th to 8th. So that's really good improvement on the defensive end. They just need to keep bringing that back a little bit more and offensively keep moving forward a little bit. But overall, they're almost 2 goals better off a game than they were last season. So that is improvement. Is it enough to make a big difference in 2026? We'll have to wait and see. Centre clearances has got a lot better, -1 to +1.5 this year. There's reasons for that. The ruck changes potentially. Also, their midfield group has kind of changed a lot last year. Certainly early days, Wanganeen Malira played a lot of defensive half football, whereas this year, overall, he's played a lot more midfield time. Stoppage clearances is about the same. They were 4th last year. They're 5th again this year. Inside 50 differential has gone from -3.5 to less than -1. Moved up 3 ranking spots in that, so that's pretty positive there. Contested football, they were 5th last year. They've moved that up even more to 3rd best in the comp this year. Uncontested football, this is an interesting one. They've gone from 6th last year to 13th. And overall, I think they do look better with this less uncontested side of football. Like, they weren't a massive uncontested team, but it certainly hasn't hurt them going less uncontested football this year. Shots per game, this is a big change. 13th last year to 11th best this year, -3 per game last year to basically dead level this year. So that is a big improvement, and that's a reason why basically 2 goals better off this year is that 3-shot differential, really. Accuracy is the one downside here. They've gone from mid-table, 9th best in the competition last year, down to 14th best this year. So they do need to tidy up their kicking at goal if they are to make a run for the back half of the year. As we typically say around here, poor kicking is poor football. So hopefully for the Saints Facts fans, they can kick a little bit straighter in the back half of the year, and maybe some of these close results might end up being a little bit better for the Saints. Marks game, never been a massive marking team. Tackles, last year 11th best in the comp, this year 6th best, so they have massively increased their tackle numbers. Intercepts, much the same as last year, 13th best in intercept differential to 14th best this year, so basically dead even. So there's been some changes. I think overall they have certainly improved on paper, on the stat sheet. The results maybe not always suggesting that, but I think with a little bit of tidy up in some areas, specifically kicking at goal, you could really see this team start to improve even more and push towards maybe not just the top 10, but the top 8 or top 6, probably out of reach this season. But we'll see how they continue to progress over the next 12 months or so. We'll now jump into our player review. So if you're new around here, we do an All Aussie Rules rating system where we rate every single player, every single game, based on 30 different stats, and that's what we get here for the 2026 rating is the 2026 average so far this year. Based on the position that they've played the most in so far this year, obviously that is then their position rank. And then we've also got the 2025 rating and position rank as well there, just so you can compare last year's to this year's sort of numbers for each player. The colour system, purple is your elite, which is your top 10% of each position. Blue is top class, 10% down to 25% for each position. Green is above average, 25 to 40% for each position. Average is yellow, which is 40 down to 60. Orange is next, is below average. That's 60 and below. The light red is unranked, so that's people that have played less than 5 games so far this year. And that's pretty much a summary. Now let's go into the players. Starting at general defender, which is where we usually start in the back line. Jack Sinclair, who unfortunately got injured in the last match before the bye for the Saints. We'll see how long that keeps him out for. The official ruling is calf. We'll see what that is in the future. But Jack Sinclair, pretty similar numbers to last year, putting up pretty good numbers again. So he's a key member of this team and a key ball user for the team. Since Wanganeen-Malira's not in that backline core anymore, he is kind of a lone man, and I think that is something that they need to find, especially if he's going to be missing any games of football. They need some support for him back there. They've tried Wanganeen-Malira again a couple times this year, and I don't think that's the best role. I think Wanganeen-Malira is better as a forward, a midfield going forward as much as possible. Helping as a midfielder to go back, obviously, but starting in that midfield role. I was of the opinion that Sam Flanders should have been used a bit more back, but that didn't happen so much. So I don't know. We'll see. Obviously, Wilkie does help out a lot with that disposal and ball movement from the back half, but I think they need at least one more general defender that's pushing towards the top 30 or so in that position in the competition, because at the moment, their second best ranked general defender is Jack Carroll, who's rated 82nd best general defender, and then Liam Stocker, who's 97, and Liam O'Connell, who's 98. So none of those three have put up big numbers. None of them put up big numbers last year. So make of that what you will. Hunter Clark has played 3 games and maybe would bridge that gap a little bit with a bit more game time. So we'll keep an eye on that. Obviously played midfield last year. Be interesting to see those sort of numbers across a full season for him. Angus Hasty, just the 3 games unranked. So that's my thing with St Kilda right now. I feel like they are maybe one decent general defender short in terms of ball using defenders. Most good teams in the competition do have at least 2 or 3 general defenders that are capable of getting plenty of possessions, but also building score chains and that sort of stuff. So we'll keep an eye on St Kilda in the rest of this season see if they can find that option, especially if Jack Sinclair is missing for multiple weeks. Key defender wise, Cal Wilkie has been the number 1 key defender all season this year. Played every game. He's been huge for the Saints, there's no doubt about it. He was really good last year, ranked 4th in the competition. He's been even better this year, number 1. And he's about 10 rating points ahead of any other key defender so far this year. He's been absolutely huge and is a vital part of this St Kilda defence. Jack Silvani's come across. Obviously, a lot of noise was made about the changes that St Kilda made in the off-season. He's been solid. He hasn't put up the numbers he did last year before his injury, but he's still been in that above-average category. And when you consider that he and Wilkie how they've worked together, I think overall they've done a pretty good job. I think Silvani will be hoping he can put together a little bit better of a back half of the season. They have swung him forward at times this year, but that's more to do with how bad the forwards played in those games, I think, more so than the fact that the defenders were bad or Jack Silvani wasn't doing his role down back. Cominti has played 12 games. His number's not as good as last year. Maybe less of a role with Silvani coming across, but yep, there's that. Taru has played 8 games. Once again, numbers not as good as last year. He's still only a second-year player, so we'll keep an eye on him. And Dougal Howard played the 6 games. he's more of a depth sort of player, I think, at this point of his career and with the way that this team is set up. Other end of the ground is the forward line, starting with general forwards. And the biggest improver on this whole team, and one of the biggest improvers in the AFL even, is Darcy Wilson compared to last year. 61st last year, up to second best general forward. His rating has gone from a 66.7 all the way up to 100.5. That's a massive, massive improvement year on year. Bradley Hill, who mostly played outside mid last year, hasn't had as much outside mid time, has gone forward a bit, has gone back a little bit, but his rating's gone back towards that 2024 level where he was really good in 2024. Last year, he did struggle to get involved in games consistently, I think, but this year he's doing a good job. Matthias Philippou is next. His number's been pretty solid. 13 games, 26th best in this position. I think pretty solid from him. Jack Higgins has missed a bit of football this year. His number's basically on par with last year overall. I think a little bit less goals overall. Could be wrong, but still contributing. Liam Ryan is an interesting one here. He's come across from West Coast. His numbers look a lot worse than last year. 34th best in the comp as a general forward last year, whereas this year he's back at 56. He had two really good weeks 3 weeks ago. Like 3 weeks ago and 2 weeks ago, he was absolutely outstanding. Couple of his best games of his career. Unfortunately, followed it up with an absolute stinker last weekend, which has really lowered his rating massively. He would have probably been around about his average, if not ahead, up until that game. But last week was a game where he just had no effect on the game and at times a negative effect. So he'll be hoping that he can put that behind him and get back into form on the other side of the bye. Liam Henry, just the 5 games, been okay in those. Hugh Boxall, solid enough, more general forward this year. He got a little bit of midfield time last year. Dan Butler, just the 7 games, been okay. He's more of a depth player right now, I think, for the Saints. And Campbell Lake, just the 3 games so far, but hasn't been bad in those 3. Key forwards, they have had players in their general forward line help as key forwards at times. Also from the back line, we said Silvani's gone forward. They typically play 2 rucks every week, so the resting ruck spends a fair bit of time down there. So it hasn't just been 2 key forwards, but these are the 2 that are listed as key forwards in our rating system at least. Mitch Owens has improved. He's only gone from 19th to 18th, but 8 rating points higher, so that is a good sign. If he can keep improving, 18th as a key forward is pretty decent. He's certainly capable of better. Cooper Sharman is an interesting one. Slight downgrade on rating from last year and certainly rank, 8th down to 19th. His best football has been really good. Maybe lacks that consistency at times. His goal kicking at times also needs a little bit of work, I think. But, I mean, they've got 2 key forwards that are in the top 19 in the competition. That's not a bad starting point to be in. I don't think their forward line is as big an issue as their back line right now. I know that they've got a couple star players in the back line, but you need more than 3 or 4 good defenders. You need 6 at least. So I think that's the main thing that the Saints need to work on first of all. Jumping into the midfield next, inside mids are up first. Nas, Manganine Valera. What more can we say about him? He's a gun. He was the number 1 rated general defender last year. He's moved more midfield minutes this year, putting up basically the same numbers as last year. Did miss a few games with an injury, soft tissue injury, through the middle part of the season so far. But he's a gun. There's no doubt about it. He's very good. He's played well this year, as he did last year. Next up, Hugo Garcia. His numbers have gone up quite a bit on last year. He was rated, an 80 last year, 106, almost 107 this year. He's been very good, and I think that's been hugely beneficial for them, as has Max Hall, getting more midfield minutes this year. He was solid last year. His numbers moving into the midfield. a little bit sporadic, some really good games, some lower ranked games, but I think he's got the building blocks there to suggest that he will have a pretty decent career as an inside mid. Sam Flanders is obviously the one that came across from the Gold Coast. Couldn't find time in the Gold Coast midfield. He even got moved out of the general defence at Gold Coast because of the just total class that they have in that general defence line in terms of ball use. So he was playing forward there and didn't do great last year, in all honesty. Came across, we wondered where St Kilda would play him. They've mainly stuck to midfield. I would have liked to have seen him go back, as I kind of alluded to before, and help out with Jack Sinclair a bit more as that general defender. Him and Windhager and Wanganeen Malira have all had a kind of go at it. What the best option is, I don't know what's St Kilda's best option, but that's where I probably would have tried to play him the most, I reckon. His number's decent enough for a midfielder, but there's 3 midfielders there that have rated more than him. So make of that what you will. Windhager, his rating's basically on par with last year. He's more of that defensive sort of midfielder. But even as that, he's not highly rated compared to some others that are that same sort of role. He's good. He's consistent. I don't believe he's a star from what I've seen so far. Jack McRae is next. His number's well down on last year as he's been taken over by Hugo Garcia, Max Hall, and even Flanders and Windhager. Outside mids, Mason Wood, interestingly, was as a key forward last year. He's played a variety of positions for St Kilda over the years and kind of continues to do that. His number's not super this year, but he plays a role. You kind of know what you're going to get with him. Ryan Burns was more of a general defender last year. A little bit of wing time this year. Numbers lower than last year. Charlie Banfield's played just the 3 games so far. We'll continue to watch him and see how he goes. And then probably the biggest talking point going into 2026 for St Kilda was this ruck situation. Who was going to be number 1? Who's going to get most ruck time? How would they work together? And to be honest, okay is the answer. It hasn't changed the game, that's for sure. We didn't think it would. It hasn't been bad, hasn't been good. It's pretty neutral in my opinion. So Tom de Koning's rating has gone down 10 points. Still the 11th best ruckman in the comp. Hasn't been fantastic, but I mean, he doesn't get as many ruck minutes as perhaps he did last year. Rowan Marshall definitely doesn't get as many ruck minutes as last year, and he's dropped from 7th best all the way down to 14th. Could that be attributed just to the drop in minutes, or is it also the ruck rules? I don't know. I found it strange that he did end up staying and didn't pursue a crack at being number 1 ruck at a different club. There's definitely some teams that are decent and fighting for top 4, top 8 that would love a ruckman of Rowan Marshall's caliber. But maybe these ruck rules have hurt him as well. So we'll keep an eye on how that kind of progresses throughout the year and what sort of minute load both players have across the rest of the year, because it has very much varied week on week based on how each player is going as to who gets the more ruck minutes, but we'll see. Isaac Keeler, key forward last year, kind of key forward ruck this year. Only a couple games, not much to talk about there. These are the players that haven't played yet in 2026 that are on the list. So they've got a couple there that did play last year. Lance Collard as a general forward, Toby Travaglia as a general defender, and Alex Dodson, I think, played 1 game and didn't play even 50% game time last year as a key forward, are the ones that played last year that haven't played this year. And then the rest of the ones that haven't played, obviously the big one, Max King, keeps getting injured. Will we see him on the park in the AFL this year? He got a couple VFL games in, or at least one before breaking down. hopefully he can find some consistency in his body and get out on the park. But who knows? Paddy Dow, James Barrett, Patrick Said, Kai Fincher, and Eamon Armstrong are the rest of the players that haven't played yet that are on the St Kilda list. This is their remaining schedule through 2026. Just a quick note on the AAR win percentage. That's based on an ELO rating system that we do here at All Aussie Rules. It's not perfect. It just gives a little indication as to rough win percent chance for each game, based on form, whereabouts it is, all that sort of stuff. And that gives us our expected wins and expected finishing position, which is at the bottom of the screen there. So they take on Essendon out of the bye at Marvel Stadium. That is a must-win for the Saints. Should be a win, but also is a must-win. Round 18, Port Adelaide, same story. That is another must-win. If they had to finish top 10, they have to go 2-0 out of the bye. Geelong, they actually played pretty decent against Geelong. Even at GMHBA, they've had, I don't know if they've won many, but they certainly have played some decent football there. Going back to 2024, I think they lost by 8 or 10 points there, is my memory of it. Whether that's true or not, who knows. Round 20, North Melbourne, Marvel Stadium. That's a big game for both teams. Winner of that really gives themselves a good chance of top 10. Round 21, Sydney, Marvel Stadium. That's going to be tough. Sydney's tough anywhere, especially, well, even at Marvel Stadium. Carlton, Marvel Stadium. That's another one, just like the North Melbourne one 2 weeks earlier. The winner of that sets themselves up. If St Kilda can win both of those two games, North Melbourne and Carlton, having already won the Port Adelaide and Essendon ones, their finals chances are well and truly alive. If they drop one or two of those, it could be all over. Round 23, Richmond, that's a game they should be winning, followed by round 24 against Gold Coast at Marvel Stadium. That might be a win and you make the finals, lose and you're out sort of situation for the Saints. Won't be easy. Gold Coast don't always play great in Melbourne or at Marvel Stadium, but they certainly won't want to be leaving it to that game if I was the Saints. Based on those numbers, it would give them 10.5 wins, which would be 11th on the AFL ladder and just missing out. Obviously, we did say they're on 6 wins so far. If you were to consider every game where they're above 50% as games they win, that would give them 6 wins in the run home, which would be 12 wins total for the season, which would be enough for finals. So it's certainly not out of the realms of possibility, if we're being completely honest. But it's a matter of them winning the games they need to win, which won't be easy, if we're being completely honest. And based on my rating system, this ELO rating system that I've got, the team that finishes 10th on that list is Gold Coast on 11 wins. So that last game there is going to be hugely important as to who gets through, because at the moment how it sits is Collingwood, Gold Coast, St Kilda all on 11 wins. Well, Collingwood obviously would be 11.5 with their one draw. So every game is important, no doubt about it. If they win the games they are capable of winning or should be winning, that's Essendon, Port Adelaide, North Melbourne, Carlton, Richmond. There's 5. That might be enough for them to play top 10 football. However, if they were to drop even one of those, then maybe that is season goodbye. And this is a similar story for the last couple of years. They get to this point where they need to go on a massive run. And yeah, they basically don't leave Marvel Stadium. 6 of their last 8 games are at Marvel, and the other 2 are in Melbourne. MCG and Geelong. They do this the last 2 years too. If you look back at our mid-season reviews the last couple of years, I think we've said very similar stuff. They've just left themselves a little bit too much to do in the back half of the year. Maybe this year will be different and they'll get on a run, and maybe if they win the next 2 and then somehow beat Geelong, all of a sudden maybe even a home playing game is on the cards. So it's going to be a fascinating run home. But that's the Saints 2026 mid-season review. Hope you've enjoyed it. As I said at the top of the episode, don't forget to hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. If you enjoy this sort of content, all 18 teams are now up, so go check all of them out. I appreciate you for being here. Go check out social medias, all Aussie Rules. I'm John. We've got plenty more content coming out on the YouTube channel planned for the next few weeks, so make sure you stick around, and I'll catch you on the next one.